Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senators. Well, I'm going to start out by saying there you go again. Another budget bill written behind closed doors without public input, without the input of 32% of this legislative body that represents over 1 million Iowans. We were left out. And some of us really do have some knowledge about this budget. I have been saying for 7 years that this state needs to take back that Medicaid system from the MCOs. When are we going to be humble enough to admit that it was a mistake? It was a mistake, especially for our children with disabilities and our elders who need nursing care. It was a mistake. Humility is a virtue. I'm going to try and summarize some of the things that my colleagues have said before me today that articulated it much better than I can, so I'm going to summarize some of it just as a refresher. Excuse me, but this brings tears to my eyes and makes my heart heavy. It is sad what we are doing to children in this state right now. A budget defines our priorities. And by the way, taxes are a part of that budget. And I want you to keep that in mind as I go through some of this. Right now, Iowa Republicans, the welcome mat is no longer a welcome mat unless someone looks like you and thinks like you. In my humble opinion, this legislative session will go down in history as one of the most anti-child sessions. This budget fails Iowa's children. It fails Iowa's working, poor families. No one aspires to be poor. No one aspires to have a disability. No one decides whether or not they are straight or gay. You just are. You just are. It does nothing to improve the health outcomes of moms or babies in this state when you turn down Senator Peterson's amendment. You've done nothing to fund hospitals, as Senator Peterson has already articulated so well. The number of rural hospitals that have closed and the number that have closed their OB/GYN units. Those are in your districts. And we're standing here fighting for your districts and the health care for your people. I am a state senator. My vote affects all 3 million Iowans, just as every one of your votes does. And of course, we added a few more dollars for oral health in Iowa. Well, thank you for doing that. But quite frankly, considering the need that we have, that was a little bit like spitting in the ocean. And the one that bothers me more than anything right now, something near and dear to my heart, is the fact that we are not funding home and community-based services for children and adults with disabilities. It keeps them having a normal life, as normal as they possibly can have. And yet there's no new funding. And these are the people in our state who are some of the most underpaid and do some of the hardest work. But I want to focus on childcare. I don't know how many times every one of you have to hear one obstacle for families and workers entering the workforce and remaining in the workforce. Many of the families that we attempt to help in this budget, they're working. They're the ones that are working at those low-wage jobs. many of the jobs that many of us don't even want to do, but they do them. And they did them all through that COVID pandemic, while we all got to stay home and hunker down. In fact, as Senator Weiner had mentioned earlier this year, we gave to Iowa's upper income and upper middle income families 3 times more in a voucher than what this bill provides to working families to help them with childcare. Where's the justice in that? Your solution to date for childcare, besides underfunding the system, no longer require a physical for childcare workers to make sure they don't have a communicable disease. Allows 16-year-old teenagers to care for up to 15 3-year-old toddlers without adult supervision. Really? But what is so disturbing to me is that you can't jump fast enough or high enough to cut another tax for the millionaires in this state. And let me give you an example, and then I'm going to bring it back to childcare. 3,400 people in this state earn more than $1 million a year. God bless them. I'm glad they have it. But that tax break from last year, $1,300 a week, $5,200 a month in a tax break. And the people we are trying to help with this bill at 150% of poverty for a family of 2, a mom with a child. They live on $3,000 a month. And we are not going to give them some additional help to pay for their child care? Really? Really? And then we look down our nose at them and try to make it sound like somehow they are lazy and they just don't want to work. Yes, they do. And most of them do. And I live in one of those neighborhoods and see them every day get up and work. And they are bone tired at the end of the day, and I can see it on their face when they get off that bus and walk home. The welcome mat is only out for those who look like you and who think like you. This is not the Iowa I grew up in, and it's no longer the Iowa that I know. When are we going to stop this culture war and start working together to solve the real problems facing the families of Iowa? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.